Hello, my name is Emma, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my review for The Blood Between Us by ZAC BREWER. I was sent an early copy of this book in exchange for an honest review by Harper Collins, so first of all, thank you so much, Harper, for sending me a copy, and that review is what you guys are getting today. This review is totally spoiler-free, so you don't have to have read The Blood Between Us to watch it, but hopefully by the end of this video, if you guys decide to stick around, it might be a book that you're interested in. Now, I absolutely adore ZAC BREWER. He is such a nice guy. I've loved his books for years. I met him at Y'all Fest, and he is just such an amazing man. The only books that I've read from ZAC so far are the Chronicles of Vladimir Todd series, which is a middle grade fantasy. So as soon as he came out with a young adult mystery, I was like, this is going to be a really interesting experience for me as a reader. The Blood Between Us follows a boy named Adrian and his sister Grace. As a child, Grace never really accepted Adrian as a part of her family. Adrian was adopted into Grace's already established family, but even the contempt between these two goes far beyond that. In an unexpected turn of events, Adrian is compelled to move back to the East Coast away from the life he has established in California and go back to board and go to school where their parents taught, as well as become one of Grace's classmates again. Reintegrating back into an old high school can be hard enough in itself, but Adrian is actually receiving anonymous tips from an unknown number that Grace possibly knows more about their parents' death than she's actually letting on. In the months following Adrian's return to the academy, his life becomes ruled by his final ties to the only relatives that he really has, a sister with some suspicious behavior, as well as an unknown texter who is just creating this life of intense struggle and chaos for him. I personally gave The Blood Between Us 4.5 out of 5 stars because I really loved it. With my crazy school and work semester for the past couple of months, I've only been finishing a book like every 2 weeks to a month it would take me to read one physical book. I finished The Blood Between Us in 2 days. This is honestly the perfect book to get you out of a reading slump. It's fast-paced, it's not too dense, and it's just all around a fun read. Moving into the content of this book, I really loved the writing. It's detailed enough to make me notice its quality, but not too much that it's distracting me from the actual story, and that's exactly what I need in a book. ZAC just has this addicting writing style that'll have you flipping through the pages of the book so quickly that you don't even realize because you're just so into his story, and I really appreciate that about his work. Now, there are some really interesting and diverse aspects about this book that I really enjoyed that I want to share with you guys. The first of that being adoption. I feel that most authors feel like adoption is kind of like a taboo topic in young adult literature because it's virtually non-existent. Normally in the books that at least I have read, all of the parents are the biological parents of the main character, or the family is completely absent from the story. Now, I was never adopted myself, but by interacting with people who have gone through that experience of adoption, there are some feelings that I've heard about that are very prominent in the book, which I think would make it an accurate representation. Again, I've never been adopted, so like I can't tell for sure, but just what I know about adoption, this seems like a very accurate representation. Throughout the beginning of the book, because the first few chapters take place when Adrian is like 14, and then we move to a couple years later when the actual story is taking place, whenever Adrian had done something slightly wrong in his childhood and his mother got aggravated, his immediate thought was that I'm afraid she regrets adopting me. I just personally feel that insecurity has such an impact on people going through this situation, and it doesn't go away easily, so I'm really glad that was included very briefly in the story. I also enjoy the fact that although Adrian and Grace's parents are dead for most of this book, the parental figures in this story that kind of take their place are gay. Again, that's not something we see in young adult literature. We have gay characters and gay relationships, never gay parents. I mean, with ZAC being a gay transgender male with fire truck red hair and a coffin for a couch, I would think he's gonna include some diverse and unusual topics into his stories, and I really love that about him. As for characters, I really admire Adrian. When reading this book, I didn't really think I would get really attached to anyone, but I totally felt for Adrian all throughout the story. He's just so unapologetically himself, and I can really appreciate that. There was this one Facebook post that I know I saw on ZAC's page, because of course I follow him, and I really wish I could remember it. I went through for like an hour trying to find it so I can include it in this video, but I'm just gonna sum it up from you from what I remember. It was basically about people asking if Adrian is bi or gay or asexual or pansexual. I just think it's really interesting that we have a character that sexuality is so vague. Normally in YA, if we have a character that's anything but straight, that tends to be a large part of their character, and while progressively I'd like it so it didn't have to be a massive part of their character, we could just have somebody who's just gay and like it's whatever. I just really like that we have a character that labels are completely non-existent in this story. The other character that I want to talk about is Grace. Despite Grace being mentioned so frequently in the book, we don't see a lot of interactions with her and Adrian, which makes sense because they're not on good terms whatsoever. I absolutely hate Grace. I mean, Adrian is like my little baby and she tortured him for absolutely no reason. There are just some characters in books that just totally get under your skin, and Grace is one of them for me. I don't know if we were meant to like Grace by the end of it. I couldn't really pick up on that, but I don't like her whatsoever. I don't like her in the beginning, I don't like her in the middle, I don't like her in the end. I don't like Grace. Something else I really liked about this book is that it feels so normal to me. While things like parents dying in a lab fire and having to move across the country to go back to a boarding school and having a sister that tortures you aren't very common, a lot of the things that happen in this book are pretty normal in my opinion. Adrian goes out to parties and his interactions with his classmates are very typical for a high school setting if you ask me. There are quite a few scenes where Adrian is in like an AP chemistry class and he's interacting with his lab partner Caroline, who he's never really talked to before. Their dynamic is really, really interesting and I would love to see more of that relationship explored, but they're actually like doing things in school like lab experiments. Like one of the things they have to do is like blow up a bathtub, and it was such an epic scene and it was so cool, and I just really, really liked that blowing up the bathtub scene. One other thing I really liked about this story is that the relationships aren't so concrete. A lot of times in YA we have girl meets boy, things happen, things get crappy for both of them, they fall in love, they come out against all odds, happily ever after. This book isn't like that. There's a lot of crisscrossing of relationships and a lot of different components to it, and I really don't even know where it resolves to in the end. So I think that itself is really, really interesting. I just think there's so much of this book that is so different from stereotypical YA that I think a lot of people need to appreciate. Now my final thoughts for this review are focused on the ending. Obviously no spoilers, but I do want to talk about it. To put it simply, in my opinion, it was just too short. The climax of the book happens and in like 15 pages everything is over. There's really just no falling action, and I felt that not only did we have the time to do that in this book, I just felt it really needed it to connect the end of the story with the climax. That was really the reason that I took away that 0.5 star, but obviously 4.5 stars is a really, really great rating, and I really, really loved this book. It was just that I felt the ending could have been done a little bit better. In between the end of the story and what is like the epilogue, or it might just be the last chapter, there is a significant period of time that happens. A lot of change happens in that time, and I felt that we just really needed to actually see that change in order for the end of the story to develop properly. There was just so much that happened, and I understand that it was a very long time and a lot of things could have changed, but I wanted to see that change. I just feel like the story is incomplete without watching that happen. At just under 300 pages, The Blood Between Us is absolutely by no means a hefty book. So the shortness of it really plays into the fun aspects of it, where it's really fast paced and like it's not going to take you a long time to read or to get into, but because it's so short, I felt that we would have had a lot of room to play with the ending, so it didn't feel so unfinished in my opinion. But that doesn't disregard the fact that I really, really loved the book. All it comes down to is that I'm just needy and impatient and I want more from ZAC Brewer's books. Like all of his books are so short and I'm like, come on man, like I can read for longer than this. I can do this and I know you can do it too, so just give me more. So that's really it for my review of The Blood Between Us by ZAC Brewer. I would sincerely recommend this book to absolutely anyone, especially those of you who are looking for a fun, fast-paced, and easy reading book that's ideal for getting out of slumps and whatnot. If you've read The Blood Between Us, I would love to hear your thoughts. It came out on May 3rd, so you're free to go out to Barnes & Noble and buy this book and then come back and we can discuss all of its greatness together. If you haven't read The Blood Between Us but you stuck with me thus far through the review, or maybe this is your first time even hearing about the book and this review has made you more keen on wanting to pick it up, I would love to know. That is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching and I will see you soon for a new one. Bye!